Previously, I told you about the message that broke me. You won't be joining us. My wife prefers to keep it just family. And I told you how, one cold Christmas night, I stood at their doorstep with gifts in my hands, only to have the door closed in my face. That was the moment I realized, in their eyes, I was no longer truly his mother. But what came after? What came in the silence that followed, nearly destroyed me more than that night itself. Because rejection is one thing. Silence, endless, suffocating silence, is another. After Christmas passed, the days stretched long and empty. The tinsel was gone, the streets bare again, but the weight inside me only grew heavier. I moved through my home like a ghost, dusting shelves that didn't need dusting, rearranging things just to hear sound. The house creaked in ways it never had before. Even the ticking clock seemed louder, mocking me with each second that passed without a word from him. At first I told myself he would call. Maybe he needed time, maybe he felt guilty. Every time the phone buzzed, my heart leapt, only to sink again when it was a wrong number or an advertisement. I checked the mailbox with trembling hands, but all I found were bills. Days became weeks. Still nothing. I began to wonder if this was how it would be from now on, if I would simply fade into the background of his life, forgotten like an old photograph stuffed in a drawer. The thought made my chest ache in ways I can't put into words. So I started writing letters. Not emails, not texts, letters, the kind you fold carefully and seal with hope. In them, I wrote about small things, the flowers blooming in the yard, the smell of bread baking, memories of when he was a boy. I didn't accuse, I didn't beg. I only reminded him of the love that had carried us both through the hardest years. But I never sent them. Each one remained in a box by my bed, tucked away like unshed tears. Maybe I was afraid of silence on the other end, afraid that if I reached out, there would be no reply at all. One evening, I sat at the kitchen table with a half-written letter before me. Outside, children's laughter echoed faintly, and I thought of him as a boy again, running through the yard, calling for me. My hand shook as I wrote, "I don't know what I did wrong, but please remember, I will always love you." Then I stopped. The tears blurred the ink until the words melted into each other. I folded the page and slid it into the box with the others. I tried to keep busy. I tended the small garden out back, even though my knees ached. I joined a knitting circle at the community hall, hoping the chatter of other women would fill the silence in me. But each time someone mentioned their grandchildren, their family dinners, I felt my throat tighten. I smiled. I nodded, but inside I felt like I was splitting apart. Then one afternoon, I saw him. Not at my door, not calling on the phone, but across town. I was carrying groceries when I noticed him by the cafe, laughing with someone from work. For a moment, my heart soared. He was only a few steps away. My son. I froze, unsure if I should approach. What if he turned me away again? What if he looked at me with that same cold distance? But the longing was too strong. I couldn't just let him pass by like a stranger. So I stepped forward, my voice trembling. "Sweetheart," he turned, surprise flashing in his eyes. For a split second, I saw the boy I remembered, the child who once clung to me. But then his expression changed, hardened. He glanced around quickly, as if afraid someone would see us. "Mom, you shouldn't just show up like this." My heart cracked. "I wasn't looking for you. I was just shopping. I only wanted to say hello." His voice was quiet, almost apologetic, but firm. "It's not a good time. I'll call you." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. He gave me a quick, forced smile before turning back to his colleague. And just like that, he was gone again, leaving me standing there on the sidewalk, clutching a bag of groceries that suddenly felt too heavy to carry. That night, I lay awake in the dark, the memory of his voice echoing in my head. It wasn't anger I heard, it was fear. Fear of her, fear of displeasing her. And that realization hurt even more, because it meant he had made a choice. And that choice wasn't me. After that brief encounter on the street, I told myself things couldn't possibly grow colder. But they did. Silence became our language, and in that silence, I felt myself shrinking. Weeks passed, then months. I watched other families gather in parks, mothers walking arm in arm with their grown children, fathers bouncing grandchildren on their knees. I told myself not to stare, not to envy, but it was impossible. Each smile I saw in those families felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. One afternoon, I gathered my courage. I knew where he usually went for his lunch break. I walked slowly, heart pounding, and when I saw him sitting alone on a bench, scrolling through his phone, I hesitated. My legs trembled as though they didn't belong to me. I approached quietly. "Sweetheart," I said, my voice soft, almost pleading. He looked up, startled. For a moment, I thought I saw relief, perhaps even gladness, but then his face changed. He glanced around quickly, as if to make sure no one had noticed me. "Mom, you can't just show up like this," he said, his voice tight. I forced a smile. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I only wanted to sit with you for a few minutes, just to talk." He shook his head, lowering his voice. "She wouldn't like it." "She?" I asked, though I already knew. "My wife," he whispered, as though her name itself could summon her. She doesn't want us to spend too much time together." My heart thudded painfully. "But I'm your mother." He rubbed his forehead, looking exhausted. "I know, Mom. I know. But things are complicated. Complicated." That word echoed through my mind as I stood there, clutching my coat around me. What could be complicated about a mother loving her son? What could be complicated about sharing a meal, about sitting on a bench together? I swallowed hard, my eyes burning. "Do you ever miss me?" I whispered. He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any word he could have spoken. I tried to smile, tried to hide the breaking inside me. "I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you, that I love you." He nodded stiffly, eyes still fixed on the ground. "I have to go," he said at last, standing up. "Take care of yourself." And with that, he walked away. Not a hug, not even a glance back. Just footsteps fading into the distance, leaving me frozen on the bench, my hands trembling in my lap. For a long time, I sat there, watching the empty space where he had been. The cold breeze bit into my cheeks, but I didn't move. Inside me, something had cracked open, something I wasn't sure would ever heal. That evening, I came home and sat in my quiet kitchen. I stared at the box of letters I had written but never sent. My hands hovered over them, aching to tear them apart, to destroy the proof of my foolish hope. But I couldn't. They were the only place where my love still lived, where my words still reached him, even if he never read them. And now, I want to ask you, those of you listening to this story, please tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? Would you have kept reaching out, risking rejection again and again? Or would you have stopped, letting go of the person you once gave everything for? I need to know, because even now, I wonder if I made the right choices. The days after that meeting blurred together. I stopped going into town for a while, afraid of seeing him again and being reminded of the distance between us. My world shrank to the four walls of my home. I cleaned rooms that didn't need cleaning, polished silverware that would never be used. Every evening, I sat by the window, waiting for a phone call that never came. Sometimes, I would pick up my phone and scroll through our old messages, back when he used to write me little notes. "Made it home safe, love you, Mum." Or, "Don't forget to eat dinner, okay?" Those messages were years old, but they felt like lifelines. I read them over and over, as if repeating them could bring that version of him back to me. But deep down, I knew that boy was gone. The man who replaced him belonged to someone else now, someone who wanted me erased. And the cruelest part, he was letting it happen. When the nights grew too long and the silence too heavy, I found myself drifting back into the past. It was the only place where I still felt whole, where his laughter still filled the air and his small hand still reached for mine. I remembered the day he learned to ride a bicycle. We didn't have much, just an old second-hand bike with chipped paint and a seat that squeaked whenever he shifted his weight. He wobbled at first, fear etched across his face, but I ran behind him, holding the seat, shouting encouragement until my throat ached. "You can do it, sweetheart. Don't be afraid, I'm right here." And then, suddenly, he let go of fear. His little legs pumped furiously, and he sped down the street, hair flying, eyes wide with triumph. He turned back to look at me, shouting, "Mama, I'm doing it. I'm really doing it." I laughed so hard I cried. Neighbors leaned out of their windows, smiling at the sight. That evening, as he fell asleep, he whispered, "Thank you for not letting go too soon." I kissed his forehead and told him, "I'll never let go before you're ready." But now, years later, it was he who had let go. Not because he was ready, but because someone else told him to. I thought of the nights when storms rattled the windows of our tiny apartment. He was terrified of thunder, clinging to me with his little body trembling. I would hold him close, humming softly, stroking his hair until the storm passed. "The thunder can't hurt you," I'd whisper. "As long as I'm here, nothing can hurt you." Back then, he believed me. Back then, my arms were his whole world. Another memory returned, his first day of school. He was so small, with a backpack almost bigger than his body. He clung to my skirt, refusing to let go, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Don't leave me, Mama," he begged. My heart broke, but I knelt down, looked into his eyes and said, "I'll always be with you, even when you can't see me." He walked into that classroom with red eyes and trembling lips, but when I picked him up later, he ran into my arms, grinning. "You were right, Mama. You were with me the whole time. Those memories used to bring me joy. Now they feel like knives, because the boy who once believed I was always with him now acts as if I never existed. Sometimes, I wonder if he remembers at all. Does he recall those stormy nights, those whispered promises? Does he think of the woman who worked until her hands blistered just to keep him fed and clothed? Or has all of it been erased, rewritten by the life he now lives with her? I opened an old photo album recently. The pages smelled faintly of dust, but the pictures were bright with laughter. Him in his Halloween costume, a crooked homemade ghost I stitched from an old sheet. Him holding up a paper crown he made in kindergarten, announcing proudly that he was king of the world. Him hugging me tightly after his high school graduation, whispering, "We did it, Mom." I traced those photos with trembling fingers, whispering his name into the silence. For a moment, I let myself pretend he was still that boy, still the child who saw me as his safe place. But the illusion shattered quickly, replaced by the image of him turning away from me on that bench, afraid of his wife's disapproval. Memories can be cruel. They remind you not just of what you had, but of what you've lost. And the cruelest thing of all is knowing those moments are locked forever in me, but perhaps forgotten in him. I sometimes wonder if I made a mistake by loving him too much, by giving him all of me. Maybe I left nothing for myself. Maybe that's why, when he turned away, there was nothing left inside me but emptiness. But still, even as the pain gnaws at me, I cannot stop loving him. A mother's heart doesn't learn how to stop. It only learns how to endure. There comes a point when silence becomes unbearable. I had tried waiting, hoping, even chance encounters, but nothing pierced the wall between us. So one evening, when the loneliness pressed too heavily on my chest, I did the only thing left to me. I wrote him a letter. This one wasn't like the others stacked in the box by my bed. This time, I poured out everything. I told him about the nights I stayed awake when he was sick, about the meals I skipped so he could eat, about the way my whole life had been shaped around keeping him safe, keeping him loved. I reminded him of the promises I made when he was small, that he would never be alone, that he would always have me. But it wasn't just memories. I told him about now, about the quiet house that feels like a tomb, about how every day without his voice feels like another layer of earth being piled over me. And then I wrote the hardest words of all. If I have done something wrong, I beg your forgiveness. If I am unwanted, please just tell me so that I may learn how to let go. When I finished, the page was blotched with tears. My hand ached from writing, but my heart ached more. I folded it carefully, slid it into an envelope, and for the first time, I addressed it to his home. No box by the bed this time. This one I was sending. I walked to the mailbox under the pale glow of the street lamp. The night was quiet, the world still. My fingers trembled as I dropped the letter inside. The clang of the metal echoed in my ears like the closing of a door. And then, I waited. Days passed. I checked the mailbox, the phone, my email. Nothing. Each morning I told myself, maybe today he would reply, maybe today he would knock on my door. But each night ended in the same silence. A week went by, then 2, then 3. Still nothing. The pain of that silence was worse than any harsh word he could have spoken, because words, at least, would have meant he cared enough to answer. Silence meant erasure. One evening, I sat by the window, the sky painted with the colors of dusk. My chest felt heavy, and I whispered into the empty room. I don't think he read it, or if he did, maybe it didn't matter. I looked down at my hands once strong enough to carry him, now frail and trembling. I wondered if he remembered them at all. Did he remember how those same hands wiped away his tears? How they held him close when the world was frightening? Or were they now nothing more than the hands of a woman he was trying to forget? The days blurred together, one indistinguishable from the next. I stopped checking the phone. I stopped hoping for the mailbox. Instead, I moved through my house quietly, like a ghost haunting her own life. But just when I thought nothing would change, something happened. It wasn't a call, not even a letter. It was something else. Something that forced us face to face again in a way I had not expected and could not prepare for.